All right, good morning, everyone. We have a quorum from both houses, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to this subcommittee meeting of the Senate Committee on Finance and the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means. This is a subcommittee on general government. I'm Senator Angie Taylor, and I have the honor of sitting in for Senator Neal until she may get here with us this morning. And if so, I will happily relinquish. Yes, I will relinquish with yes. This seat back to her. Anyway, we'll start with the roll, Madam Secretary.
Assemblymember Backus. Assemblymember Koenig. Assemblymember O'Neill. Assemblymember Torres Fawcett. Assemblymember Watts. Senator Buck. Assemblymember Anderson. Chair Neal. Chair Taylor.
I am present. Thank you so much. Please mark Chair Taylor. I'm already here. Chair Neal and Assemblymember Torres Fawcett present when they arrive. Thank you so much. And if Chair Neal isn't able to make it, we'll mark her absent, excused. Again, welcome here in Carson City and the throngs of people in Las Vegas. And I'm sure the many people on the phone lines this morning to our subcommittee meeting as we close the budget for the State Department of Agriculture. We have several budgets before us, just a couple housekeeping measures, and I know you already know this, but we go through it anyway. Please silence your electronic devices, and if you're going to be testifying, then please make sure you've signed in and give our staff your business card. And of course, make sure you state your first and last name for the record. And the first time you speak, please make sure that you spell your last name so we can have everything accurate in our minutes. And finally, at the end of our meeting, we will have public comment. I'll give that number, 888-475-4499. The meeting ID for this meeting is 8477-4837-915, and we'll do that at the end of the meeting. And then finally, as you can see, we have electronic devices in front of us, our laptops and so on. It is not to be disrespectful or doesn't indicate a lack of attention, but we have exhibits and so on in front of us, and we will utilize them. All right, that being said, we will get started. Again, we have some budget closings off from the State Department of Agriculture, and we have our amazing staff here with us to take us through it. Ms. Johnston, please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Nicolette Johnston, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. I'll be presenting the closing documents for 13 budget accounts within the Department of Agriculture, 3 of which have been previously heard by the subcommittee on March 6th. The first budget is the Administrative Services Budget, account 4554, which is located on page 3 of your packet. In this budget account, there are 2 major issues. The first major issue is new information technology technician position. The governor recommends $150,169 in the cost allocation revenue over the 25-27 biennium for new information technology technician position and associated operating costs to support the department's information technology needs. A mid-level IT technician position is recommended to support the department's information IT needs and assist with basic user support tasks, which would replace a contract IT position and enable senior IT staff to focus on more complex projects and network administration responsibilities. The department indicates that the recommended IT technician would be key to enhancing responsiveness within its IT unit, increasing service levels, and reducing staff downtime throughout the department. The new position would support the department's help desk by responding to requests, providing on-call and emergency support, monitor and maintain device security, perform routine maintenance and problem resolution, and assist in deployment of new hardware. During the budget hearing, the agency stated part of the reason its information technology needs have increased relate to the installation of a new infrastructure program, including the installation of Wi-Fi throughout the department's different offices, new IT needs at both the Reno warehouse and the new Las Vegas warehouse, and replacement of a wireless access point in the Sparks headquarters, new backup network connection in the Elko office, and the replacement of single sign-on for internal applications to enhance information security for the department. The department further indicated that it continues to have project backlogs and is currently developing various in-house applications, including access to animal entry permits, which was developed by the department's IT team, And as the department continues to respond to high pathogenic avian influenza, the team is proactive in posting updates on the internet and the efforts by the department in tracking the disease. The department further indicated its current IT employees' time has been diverted away from day-to-day needs and IT-related projects due to these more time-sensitive structural projects. And the IT team has been working until midnight some nights to avoid disruptions in operations while they're performing these modernizations. So the department clarified that if the new IT technician position is approved, it would no longer need the existing contract IT position, and if fully staffed, it would be able to meet their IT needs going into the future. The decision for the subcommittee: does the subcommittee wish to recommend approving $150,169 in cost allocation revenue over the 25-27 biennium for a new information technology technician position and associated operating costs to support the department's information technology needs as recommended by the governor?
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. Are there any questions for staff discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved as stated by staff.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. There is a motion from Chair Anderson and a second from Vice Chair Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. Let the record show is unanimous for those of us who are here, and we will continue on. Ms. Johnston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The second major issue is the continuation of the Language Access Plan. The governor recommends approximately $201,000 in department cost allocation revenue over the 25-27 biennium for continued funding for a public information officer position, which was added in FY 2025 to aid the department in implementing its Language Access Plan, and is needed to continue in the upcoming biennium. As background information, the Interim Finance Committee approved an allocation from the restricted IFC contingency account of $127,736 in accordance with Assembly Bill 480 of the 82nd 2023 legislative session to implement the department's Language Access Plan. And some of those, the plan included approximately $29,000 for translating vital documents, $3,000 for contract interpretation services, $37,000 for virtual training, and $57,000 for the PIO position to serve as the department's Language Access Plan coordinator. The department established the position in FY 2025, and it is included in the base budget for the 25-27 biennium. During the budget hearing, the department indicated it has identified a vendor to perform its cultural competency training and hopes to have the training organized and completed by June 30th, 2025, and has also identified a statewide contract vendor to provide translation services of vital documents such as forms and applications, as well as interpretation services, and believes that the funding for the translation and interpretation services should also be expended by June 30th, 2025. The department indicated there is a need to continue the PIO position in the 25-27 biennium, as its goal is to ensure Nevadans have access to the services of the department and understand notices that are critical relating to public health and safety, community nutrition, and requirements for business licenses. The department confirmed it does not anticipate any other costs needed to develop the Language Access Plan aside from continuing the Public Information Officer position in the 25-27 biennium. However, following the budget hearing, the department confirmed that the Division of Human Resource Management requested change the position classification of the recommended Public Information Officer to a Program Officer 3 to be commensurate with the duties of the position. And this change would be cost neutral since both position classifications are at grade 35. So the decision for the subcommittee is: does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of $201,989 in department cost allocation revenue over the 25-27 biennium for continued funding for a program officer position to aid the department in implementing its Language Access Plan?
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. There is discussion, I know, on this item. Chair Anderson?
Thank you. It's not really a question, it's more just a comment. I really appreciate how this department took this item seriously and really did invest in it, both time and energy in finding the right person to do this. So I just wanted to make that comment. That came out very clearly during the hearing, and wanted to bring that up again about how much I appreciated it, and I think others did as well. So just thank you very much for taking this seriously and not just being like, yeah, whatever. it was a serious thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Anderson. The only comment I was going to make is congratulate you on filling the position. I know that's not an easy position to fill in your area, but because you took it seriously, then you're able to find someone. So great job, Director Gokachia. Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll entertain the motion.
So moved is read by staff.
There's a motion on the floor from Chair Anderson, the second from Vice Chair Bacchus. Seeing no discussion on the motion, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? The motion carries. Please go ahead, Ms. Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. There are no other closing items in this budget account, so we can go ahead and move on to the next budget account, which is Budget Account 4545, Agriculture Registration and Enforcement. There are two major closing issues in this budget account. The first is the recommendation for a transfer of the Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control budget account. The governor is recommending transferring this budget account to the Agriculture Registration Enforcement budget account, including 7 positions and total funding of $2.7 million over the 25-27 biennium. The recommendation would transfer in the revenue and expenditures, including all program funding, associated costs, personnel, and thereby eliminate the Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control budget account. The department indicates the budget transfer would help streamline processes and mitigate reserve challenges as the program's position duties and funding sources in the two budget accounts intersect. This budget transferred is outlined in the table on page 10, and Decision Unit E900 transfers all the program personnel and associated operating costs, including the $2.7 million with existing positions. And Decision Unit E904 would transfer in a new Agriculture Inspector 2 position and associated operating costs with a net funding of approximately $74,000 over the 25-27 biennium. And this transfer is contingent upon approval of Decision Unit E304 in the Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control budget account, which is recommended to convert a part-time intermittent position to a full-time permanent Agriculture Inspector 2 position to support the program, as the department indicates that the full-time position is needed due to the increased workload. The department indicates that staff with overlapping duties are presently divided between the two budget accounts and funding with federal grants in the Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control budget account and fees in the Agriculture Registration Enforcement budget account. And the department indicates that merging the two budget accounts would allow personnel costs to be diversified across fees and grants and would reduce redundancy of multiple staff traveling to perform separate inspections, which may reduce operating costs. The department anticipates that this recommendation would improve the solvency of the Agriculture Registration Enforcement budget account, which is discussed in Major Closing Issue 2. During the budget hearing, the agency stated the recommended transfer would be a cost-neutral consolidation to improve efficiency and streamline processes and reduce those duplication of redundant tasks, and that its fiscal staff would spend less time preparing and processing less journal vouchers and work program revisions. The department anticipates that consolidating the grant funding in the Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control budget account into this fee-funded budget account could improve solvency. However, the recommended budget consolidation is cost-neutral, and there's no projected savings recommended in the upcoming biennium. Therefore, it does not appear at this time that combining the two budget accounts would address the solvency concerns in this budget account. The decision for the subcommittee: does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval to transfer the Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control budget account to the Agriculture Registration Enforcement budget account, including 7 positions and total funding of $2.7 million over the 25-27 biennium as recommended by the governor, thereby eliminating the Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control budget account?
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnston. Any discussion or questions for staff? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Chair Anderson?
So moved as stated by staff.
Thank you so much. There's a motion from Chair Anderson and a second from Vice Chair Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries, and it is unanimous from those of us who are here. Please, Ms. Johnston, proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The second major issue is replacement equipment and continued declining reserve balance. The governor's recommended budget funds replacement equipment based on additional fee revenue being generated and inclusive of all decision units reflects a continued decline of operating reserve balances from 1.3 million in FY 2026 to 717,036 in FY 2027. Expenditures continue to exceed revenues in this agriculture registration enforcement budget account, and operating reserves continue to decline as a result. The executive budget includes the following replacement equipment recommendations, which are funded with additional fee revenue rather than reductions to reserves. And those are the liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer, which is funded with pesticide registration fees recommended to be of approximately $719,000. A spectrometer funded with a fertilizer tonnage registration fees of approximately $135,000 in FY 2026, and a nitrogen analyzer also funded with fertilizer tonnage registration fees of approximately $119,000 in FY 2027, and a microwave digestion unit funded with additional fertilizer tonnage registration fees of approximately $55,000 in FY 2027. Again, the executive budget recommends that all of this replacement equipment totaling $1 million over the 25-27 biennium be funded with added fees as opposed to reducing reserves, and appears to overstate the fee revenue through the enhancement decision units compared to revenue projected in the base budget. And if recommended, this replacement equipment was purchased with utilizing reserves. The reserves amount would actually be $1.2 million in FY 2026 and a negative $312,837 in FY 2027. And the department indicates that its optimal reserve level is 45 days in this budget account. As background, the agriculture registration enforcement budget account has historically had solvency issues due to expenditures exceeding revenues. This was previously discussed in the 82nd 2023 legislative session, and a letter of intent was issued directing the agency to develop a long-term plan to align revenues and expenditures. And this plan was to include fee increases, services, or expenditure reductions, or staffing changes and other measures to improve the long-term solvency of the budget account. In the department's response presented at the IFC at the June 13th meeting, 2024 meeting, the department noted that it planned to merge these budget accounts as well as a fee increase. However, salary increases approved for the 23-25 biennium have presented further difficulties in solvency, and a majority of expenditures in this budget account do support personnel costs. The department increased the annual pesticide registration fee from $125 to $281 through R186-24, which would amend NAC 586.011. And the hearing for adoption of temporary regulations to increase the fee was approved on March 3rd. The department states that it sends its renewal notice in the fall, and fees are due by December 31st, so the revenue increase would be realized in FY 2026. However, the fee increases would still need to be approved by the Legislative Commission to become permanent regulations and provide ongoing funding beyond FY 2026. During the budget hearing, the department discussed the recommended replacement equipment and confirmed the liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer would replace its 2009 piece of equipment that's used for pesticide laboratory testing for pesticide residue analysis for all ground and surface water, pesticide used in investigations, as well as medical and recreational marijuana for pesticide residue analysis. And the department's chemistry lab utilizes the liquid mass chromatograph spectrometer to support the department's compliance investigation cases, as well as investigative cases of its partners outside the department, such as the Cannabis Compliance Board, on an as-needed basis or seasonal. And that much of the work is primarily seasonal, but it is used throughout the year. The department stated it plans to create an agreement between the department's Division of Animal Industry, primarily veterinary medical services, and the Division of Plant Sciences to expand its in-house testing as opposed to sending tests to other state laboratories. The department further confirmed that if it sends laboratory samples out of state, it has to pay out-of-state service fees for the test and could take potentially two or more days plus wait time. And if the test is performed in-house, the same day it would receive more rapid results, which is crucial, especially when relating to a potential public health issue. The department clarified it's not currently charging other state agencies or third parties for these services as the frequency of these requests have been historically low, but it is exploring interlocal agreements with other state agencies and third parties to cover the costs of these requests. And the department indicates it has recently seen an increase in requests for chemistry services, such as a recent request for about 1,200 samples. During the budget hearing, the department testified that the temporary fee increase would attempt to be made permanent through regulations during the 25-27 biennium, and if the request to make the temporary fee increase permanent is not approved, the department plans to return to its current operating levels, which would be difficult to maintain. And the department stated it is about a decade behind in fee increases and that its fees are lower than the average fees in the surrounding western states. And the department prioritized the recommended replacement equipment that would be most critical to operations and the most necessary to replace. The liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer was the most critical. However, the nitrogen analyzer and microwave digestion equipment have both failed, although it's able to continue to perform tests, but those would be secondary. And then the department noted that the importance of functioning equipment for continuation of services, and without the machines, it would need to be able to perform compliance testing, which is statutorily required to do, or meet investigation needs from the public. I would also note on March 31st, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A258284545, which added approximately $880,000 in business enterprise program fees and approximately $618,000 in pesticide registration fees in each fiscal year of the upcoming biennium to account for the various pesticide registration fees, including these recent fee increases. And then enhancements in this budget account should be budgeted with reserves as opposed to fee increases, as previously noted. And if technical adjustments are also approved to fund the recommended replacement equipment with reserves as opposed to fees, the reserves would total $2.7 million in each year of the 25-27 biennium, representing 120 days of expenditures in reserves at the end of FY 2027. I would also note that given the uncertainty of whether the temporary fee increase would become permanent, the subcommittee may wish to not approve the funding for the purchase of the various equipment and direct the department to submit work programs to the interim finance committee to purchase equipment once its fee increases are made permanent, or it demonstrates that its reserve levels are adequate to support the expenses. And the subcommittee may wish to also consider recommending issuing a letter of intent, again requiring the department to submit annual reports to the IFC regarding the department's plan to improve the long-term solvency of the budget account. So the decision for the subcommittee is A, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of replacement equipment totaling $1.1 million over the 25-27 biennium funded with reserve reductions through technical adjustments, and approve the addition of fee revenues totaling $3 million over the 25-27 biennium as recommended in Budget Amendment A258284545, or does the subcommittee wish to not recommend approval of a replacement equipment totaling $1 million over the 25-27 biennium, which the department may then request through a work program once the fee increases are made permanent, and approve the addition of fee revenues totaling $3 million over the 25-27 biennium as recommended in Budget Amendment A258284545. And does the subcommittee wish to recommend issuing a letter of intent for the department to provide annual status reports to the interim finance committee within 45 days of fiscal year end for FY 2026 and FY 2027 that provides the department's plan to improve the long-term solvency of the budget account?
Thank you so much for that report, Ms. Johnston. Any discussion? Questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain the motion. Chair Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. I will make a motion to recommend approval of option B, which is not approving the replacement equipment totaling $1.1 million over the 2025-2027 biennium. But the department may then request through a work program once the fee increases are made permanent, and approval of the addition of fee revenues totaling $3 million over the 2025-27 biennium, as recommended in Budget Amendment A258284545, and also recommend issuing a letter of intent for the department to provide annual status reports to the IFC within 45 days of fiscal year, and for fiscal year 2026, fiscal year 2027, that provides the department's plan to improve the long-term solvency of this budget account, and also outlines a plan and efforts to charge for services to budget accounts within the department, outside agencies, and any third-party entities that utilize department laboratory services.
There is a motion on the floor from Chair Anderson. Is there a second? Second. Seconded from Vice Chair Backus. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion is carried, and let the record show is unanimous of those in attendance. Please go ahead, Ms. Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. There are two other closing items, and fiscal staff recommends that other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnston. Questions for staff or discussion? Seeing none. Motion, Chair Anderson?
I will make the motion as stated by staff.
Thank you so much. We have a motion from Chair Anderson, a second from Vice Chair Backus. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposition? The motion carries. Let the record show is unanimous of those in attendance, and we'll go on to the next budget. Ms. Johnston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account is livestock inspection, budget account 4546. There is one major closing issue in this budget account, and this is also continued declining reserve balance. The governor recommends an ending reserve balance inclusive of all decision units of approximately $276,000 in FY 2027, or 43 days of operating expenditures, based on the recommended level of expenditures in the livestock inspection budget account over the 25-27 biennium. The reserve is projected to decline from the actual FY 2024 reserve of $1.7 million to approximately $276,000 in FY 2027, according to the governor's recommended budget, which is lower than the agency's target reserve of approximately $387,000, equivalent to 60 days of operating costs in this budget, based on the recommended level of expenditures in the executive budget. Further, the agency provided updated and reduced revenue projections prior to the budget hearing that would have resulted in the budget account having a negative reserve at the end of FY 2027. And this was on February 26th. That would bring the annual revenue amounts down to $1.5 million per year, compared with the $1.7 million recommended in the executive budget. As background, this budget account has also historically had solvency issues with expenditures exceeding revenues, which results in the utilization of reserves. There's some historical context to that on page 18, just going over 2019. There was a LOI issued. In 2021, the legislature approved SB 454, which revised Chapter 564, and this revised the brand re-recording fee from $120 every 4 years to $200 every 5 years. And also in the 2023 legislative session, another LOI was issued for the department to report every 6 months on the status of its reserves and provide a plan to ensure the budget account would remain solvent if reserves fell below the 60 days of operating expenditures. I would note the table on page 18 just summarizes the historical revenue of the livestock inspection budget account. And again, the bulk of brand re-recording fees would be collected again in FY 2028 based on the current 5-year collection cycle. The table on page 19 compares agency projections and the amounts in the governor's recommended budget and demonstrates total revenues and expenditures over the 25-27 biennium, which resulted in ending reserves of a negative $124,000 in FY 2027 based on those February revenue projections were based on a three-year average. The department indicated it would implement cost-saving measures, including vacancy savings related to keeping temporary contract employee positions vacant, utilizing part-time, intermittent, and full-time employees, and by reducing its high mileage reimbursement costs through a different strategy, in dispatching logistics of its brand inspectors for inspections, and also reducing the amount of overtime. During the budget hearing, the subcommittee asked whether the department believes that its current fee structure for the brand re-recording reflecting billing of every 5 years may exasperate its budget solvency issues and whether the department anticipates changing it in the future. And the department indicated it's been a challenge as these revenues would not be received again until FY 2028. However, it should be noted that the department also receives livestock inspection fee revenues of approximately $850,000 annually, as well as revenue for mileage and inspection of those animals of approximately $250,000 per year, which also supports this budget account. The agency indicated the decline in revenue and thus reserves is related to associated declines in the cattle business, which the department anticipates bottoming out in FY 2026, and the department is not conducting as many livestock inspections as it normally would due to the smaller herds in the United States, particularly Nevada. And the department anticipates that the fee revenues from inspections as well as livestock assessment revenues would rebuild back up in FY 2026 and FY 2027. And the department acknowledged that while its reserves are low and continues to spend down reserves, it is not concerned with the budget's reserve level at this time, but is also looking at implementing additional cost savings measures to cut down again on those mileage costs and utilizing existing staff rather than having contract employees perform inspections. The agency indicated it is delaying its recruitment also for its vacant agriculture police officers in the livestock enforcement budget account as a cost savings measure, as this budget account supports 50% of the cost for those officer positions. And following the hearing, the department provided revised revenue projections based on a 5-year average for most of its revenue sources as opposed to the 3-year averages previously projected in February. And so these reflect a more accurate forecast of expected revenue and the projected total revenue of $1.6 million in FY 2026 and also $1.6 million in FY 2027, excluding balance forward amounts. So the updated revenue projections would result in a decrease of $267,756 over the 25-27 biennium when compared to the amounts reflected in the governor's recommended budget. However, the department also reviewed its recommended expenditures and identified cost saving measures, specifically reducing the use of seasonal staff by $30,000 in each fiscal year, the use of contract staff by $50,000 in each fiscal year, and reducing $80,000 in each fiscal year to transfers of the livestock enforcement budget account, consistent with prior legislatively approved cost allocations. So fiscal staff recommends technical adjustments to decrease revenues by the $267,756 and decrease expenses by approximately $320,000, which would be $160,000 each fiscal year over the upcoming biennium, to align with the agency's most current projections and recommended cost reductions, and resulting in a projected reserve balance of $328,317, or approximately 55 days of expenditures at the end of FY 2027. During the 82nd 2023 legislative session, the committees issued a letter of intent requiring the department to provide semi-annual reports to the IFC on the status of its reserve level and plan to ensure the budget would remain solvent. So given the uncertainty of the agency's reserves, the subcommittee may wish to again issue a letter of intent directing the agency to report on the IFC every 6 months on the status of its reserves with a first report covering July 1 through July 31st, 2025, if reserves were to fall below 60 days of operating expenditures, and to provide a plan to ensure the account would remain solvent. So the decision for the subcommittee: does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of revenue, expenditures, and reserve levels as reflected in the governor's recommended budget, which may not be reasonable and could affect the solvency of this budget account? Or does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of updated revenue projections based on a 5-year average as provided by the department, reduce the use of seasonal and contract staff, and transfers to the livestock enforcement budget account 4557 by approximately $160,000 each fiscal year, resulting in reserves of $328,317 at the end of FY 2027, and provide fiscal staff authority to make technical adjustments as necessary? Additionally, does the subcommittee wish to recommend the issuance of a letter of intent directing the agency to report to the Interim Finance Committee every 6 months on the status of its reserves, and if reserves fall below 60 days of operating expenditures, request for the agency to provide the Interim Finance Committee with a plan to ensure the account will remain solvent?
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnston. Any questions for staff or discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain the motion. Chair Anderson?
Thank you, Chair. Why don't we go with choice B and then also continue to have the recommendation of the issuance of a letter, so that way we can have another chapter of that same information. So B and then also a continuation of the letter.
Second.
Thank you so much. There is a motion on the floor from Chair Anderson, a second from Vice Chair Bacchus. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? The motion carries. Let the record show is unanimous of those of us in attendance. Ms. Johnston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. There are 5 other closing items. I would note other closing item 5 is a base budget technical adjustment, which replaces the Nevada shared radio system. And so fiscal staff requests authority to make those technical adjustments that would align with expenditure authority and with NDOT's projected costs in the upcoming biennium. And fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 4 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing item 5 be closed with a noted technical adjustment and request authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Any questions for staff or discussion? Seeing none, we will entertain the motion. Chair Anderson?
So moved as read by staff.
Thank you. We have a motion from Chair Anderson, a second from Vice Chair Bacchus. Discussion? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? The motion carries. Let the record show is unanimous of those of us in attendance. Ms. Johnston, more budget accounts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. I will now begin presenting the budget accounts for which the subcommittee has not previously heard, for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations. I will pause after presenting each budget account to allow for questions, and when I presented the last budget in this group and questions have been addressed, the chair may wish to ask for a single motion for the closing consideration of all budget accounts for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing the recommendations, which is noted on page 43 of the packet. This first budget is on page 23 of your packet. Plant Health and Quarantine Services, budget account 4540. The Plant Health and Quarantine Services within the Division of Plant Health and Compliance provides entomology and plant pathology programs which detect, eradicate, and prevent entry of plant diseases, physiological plant disorders, pests, and noxious weeds. There are no major closing issues, and there are no other closing items. And again, closing recommendations for this budget account are included in the summary page.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Any discussion or questions on this budget account? Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. Next budget account is Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control. Budget account 4542. This budget account program is funded and the budget account provide for the control of fire ants, ash borer, vertebrate pests, and noxious weeds, and the surveying of plant pathology, nematode gypsy moth, and nursery pests, cost sharing of cooperative weed management, and subgranting to the University of California, Davis for a plant pathology lab. There are no major closing issues, and there are 2 other closing items. Other closing item 2 relates to this elimination of this budget account, as we discussed in budget account 4545, which it would be recommended or was recommended to transfer over. And so fiscal staff recommends other closing item 2 be closed consistent with the subcommittee's action on decision unit E900 and decision unit E904 in the registration, agriculture registration enforcement budget account.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Questions or discussion on this budget account? Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account is Veterinary Medical Services, budget account 4550. This budget account provides diagnostic services to protect domestic and wild animals from communicable, infectious, nutritional, and parasitic diseases. There are no major closing issues, and there are 2 other closing items.
Thank you so much. Questions, discussion? Okay, next budget account.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account is Commercial Feed, budget account 4541. Pursuant to NRS 587.879, fee revenues deposited in the commercial feed budget account must be used to pay the cost to administer commercial feed statutes, including the cost of inspection, sampling, and analysis of commercial feed. There are no major closing issues and no other closing items.
Thank you so much. Discussion or questions? Okay, let's proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account is Predatory Animal and Rodent Control, budget account 4600. This budget account cooperates with the USDA to collectively form the Nevada Wildlife Services Program, which controls predatory animals, crop-destroying birds, and rodents. There are no major closing issues, and there is one other closing item.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Questions, discussion? Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account is Measurement Standards, budget account 4551. The Division of Measurement Standards licenses, tests, and verifies the accuracy of all commercial weighing and measuring devices. It maintains the metrology lab and certifies the field standards used by weights, measures, and standards, and also obtains motor fuel samples and verifies fuel quality. There are no major closing issues. There are 5 other closing items. I would note other closing items 3 through 5 relate to replacement and new equipment for decision units E710, E711, and E720 that were recommended to be funded with fees as opposed to reserves per the budget instructions. Therefore, fiscal staff recommends technical adjustments to remove this to be supported with fees and replace with reserves to be with the commensurate amount. And so fiscal staff would recommend those technical adjustments.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Questions or discussion? Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account is the Nutrition Education Programs, budget account 2691. This budget account receives federal funding for various student nutrition programs authorized by the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, including the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program, and the Summer Food Service Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program, and Special Milk Program, and the Fresh Fruits and Vegetables Program. There are no major closing issues, and there are 4 other closing items.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Questions or discussion? Okay, please proceed. I hope we continue to talk about this account. I'm a little worried. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account is Commodity Foods Distribution Program, budget account 1362. This program administers the distribution of food received from the USDA. The Commodity Foods Program provides USDA commodity foods to schools, senior centers, Indian reservations, food banks, and other eligible agencies and individuals in Nevada, and also provides food packages to women, infants, and children. There are no major closing issues. There are 4 other closing items. I would note other closing item 4 relates to the ARPA Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds. Decision Unit E499 removes budgetary authority of $130,002 in ARPA funds in each fiscal year of the upcoming biennium. However, based on the updated projections provided by the department, it projects to expend $2.5 million in the ARPA Food Bank of Northern Nevada in FY 2025 and anticipates to fully expend the remaining grant funds of $4 million in FY 2026. And additionally, the department projects to expend $220,226 in the ARPA Community Funding Grant in FY 2025 and anticipates to fully expend the remaining funds of $148,335 in FY 2026. So fiscal staff recommends technical adjustments to include budgetary authority of $4 million in the ARPA Food Bank of Northern Nevada and $148,335 in the ARPA Community Funding Grant in FY 2026.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Questions or discussion? Another one to be concerned about. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account is the Dairy Fund, budget account 4470. The Commission is responsible for licensing and regulating product distributors and enforcing price stabilization and marketing plans for various dairy products. The Commission inspects, licenses, and regulates all segments involved in the production and sale of dairy products to Nevada's consumers and from farm-level production through sales to the customer. There are no major closing issues. There are 4 other closing items. I would note other closing item 4 relates to the transfer of the environmental health services from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health Services The governor is recommending transferring the Environmental Health Services Program, including fees, federal grants, county reimbursements, and reserves totaling $4.4 million over the upcoming biennium, along with 12 positions and associated operating costs from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health's Environmental Health Services budget account to this dairy fund budget account. And the Joint Subcommittee on Human Services recommend approving this recommendation during the closing of the Environmental Health Services budget account on April 4th, and is recommended to be scheduled to be heard before the joint meeting this Saturday on April 2026 before the full committee. Fiscal staff recommends other closing item 4 be closed consistent with the subcommittee's action on decision unit E905 in the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, Environmental Health Services budget account, and contingent upon approval of legislation that would effectuate the recommended program transfer.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Questions for staff or discussion on this budget account? Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The next budget account, the last budget account, is livestock enforcement, budget account 4557. The livestock enforcement budget was created to account for the revenues and expenditures for the department's agricultural police officer positions and is the regulatory arm of the Animal Industry Division within the Nevada Department of Agriculture. There are no major closing issues, and there is one other closing item. And closing recommendations for this are included on the summary page, which I will go over.
All right, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Last budget account, any questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for the following budget accounts. To assist with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budget accounts that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor, along with the identified technical adjustments that are recommended below. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budget accounts be closed as recommended by the governor with the technical adjustments noted, and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. 4540, Plant Health and Quarantine Services. 4552, Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control, and other closing item 2, closed consistent with the subcommittee's action on decision units E900 and E904 in the Agriculture Registration Enforcement budget account. Budget account 4550, Veterinary Medical Services. Budget account 4541, Commercial Feed. Budget account 4600, Predatory Animal and Rodent Control. Budget account 4551, Measurement Standards, with other closing items 3 through 5 closed with the noted technical adjustments to correct the funding source for equipment replacements. Budget account 2691, Nutrition Education Programs. Budget account 1362, Commodity Foods Distribution Program, with other closing item 4 closed with the noted technical adjustments to include budgetary authority for ARPA funds in FY 2026, and budget account 4470, Dairy Fund, with other closing item 4 be closed consistent with a joint subcommittee on human services action on decision unit E905 and the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, Environmental Health Services budget account, and contingent upon approval of legislation that would effectuate the recommended program transfer, and budget account 4557, Livestock Enforcement.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnston. Any questions for staff or discussions on those budget accounts? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved as stated by staff.
Second.
Thank you so much. There is a motion on the floor from Chair Anderson, a second from Vice Chair Backus. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? The motion carries, and let the record show it's unanimous of those of us who are here. Ms. Johnson, thank you so much. Right, really, have some water and take a breath. Great job. Okay, now we're to our last item on the agenda, which is public comment. If you're here in Carson City or in Las Vegas and would like to make public comment, please come forward at this time, or if we have anyone on the phone line, AVH.
Thank you. The public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers to provide public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much for all your work. Thank you, Director Gokachia. And we will be adjourned at this time.